Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Queerly Biz from Rainbow Assured. Now today we have...
Callum Howard.
There he is, and I'm Kerry King. So now then, right, so Callum, you're my emergency guest, aren't you?
I am indeed. I've been drafted in. Well, I was going to be here anyway, because
Yes.
I am, for those that don't know, I'm producer Cal.
You are producer Callum.
Yeah, so I sit behind the camera, literally just there in the corner.
You're the hidden voice.
I get a chair today,
Yes, a comfy chair as well.
instead of just sitting on the floor.
Yes, I do like it that they've given us comfy chairs. I mean, to be fair, I don't normally care that you're sitting on the floor, but I am glad for you today.
Thank you.
Because now you're a year older, aren't you?
I am, yeah, a year and a day.
Yes, and me in a year and 2 days.
Exactly, because we
Yes.
are
Birthday buddies.
birthday buddies.
Yes.
Yeah, not quite twins.
Dare I ask how old you turned?
27. Which, I mean, this is the two sides of the coin, is that I'm terrified of hitting 30, and I think you would love to be hitting 30 again.
This is very true, yes. Yes. And also, I've realised that I am an entire GCSE student older than you.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought of it that way. I mean, I've been thinking, generally when it comes to your birthday, you think a lot about getting older. I mean, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just an anxiety thing, but, getting older and dying. And I think I still have that sort of 20s perspective that, life ends when you're 50. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm halfway there now.
Don't say that. I'm only 7 years away now.
But I know it doesn't, but it's like...
So I was thinking the other day about retiring, and I thought, oh gosh, it's quite a lot quicker. It's quite a lot sooner than...
Well, it is, but then it also gets a lot further away.
Well, yes, because the government is going to keep changing it, and I'll be working
It's like
till I'm
the
80.
carrot in front of you.
Yes.
No matter how far close you get to it, it still keeps going away.
The Kinder Bueno in front of you.
Oh, white chocolate or milk chocolate?
No, milk chocolate.
Interesting.
But there was something that you said the other day about... What did you say? Something about, but do you like this? And I was like, no.
There were Bourbon Biscuits.
That's
I bought
right.
Bourbon Biscuits. Right? This
You
is
did.
great quality podcasting, isn't
Yes.
it?
No, but it's important because I think it's an important message because you said, right now, I'm only going to like you if you like the same biscuits as me. And then I said custard creams. And you went, oh, no, Bourbons. But I thought I should just point it out and say, that means you can have all the Bourbons. And I can have all the custard cream. So that's actually a great answer and a great way to look at it.
Excellent. And it also, some people like Bourbon biscuits.
Yes.
Some people like custard creams. Some people like Bourbon biscuits and custard cream.
Yes, I'm sensing a little theme here.
And some people don't care what the biscuit is. They just like a biscuit.
Yeah, it's just a sugar rush.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. Just give it me. So talking of LGBTQ, let's just slip that into the biscuit conversation.
Excellent.
Like the cup of tea
The Queerly
consent
Biscuit.
conversation.
Yes.
Did you see it? Did you ever see that video? Where they compare consent to...
No, I haven't. Enlighten me.
It's amazing. Right, so they compare consent to having a cup of tea. So the way they look at it is by saying... you can ask someone if they want a cup of tea. It's okay if they say no. You don't get to kind of force them to drink a cup of tea.
Are you sure? Because I think you really enjoy a cup of tea. I think
Now,
I'm
I
quite
really
good at
enjoy a
making.
cup of tea.
I'm quite good at making a cup of tea.
I mean, I
and
guess that's the other thing.
I just think maybe the cups of tea you've had in the past weren't as nice, and actually I make a really good cup of tea. So do you want to just try my cup of tea? And I can see there's a lot of parallels there. Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yes. So the theme is along the lines of you cannot force someone to have a cup of tea. And even if they say, yes, I'd like a cup of tea, and then they get the tea and then they go, oh, actually, I don't really want a cup of tea, you cannot then force them to drink the cup of tea. It is okay for them to say no to your tea. You don't have to be offended or hurt or upset.
Exactly.
You don't cry.
I love analogy. I really love analogy. And actually, I think it speaks to suddenly go very serious on you. And I will do this at points. I will go from making a cock joke to being deadly serious.
You do that.
I think it's so important, and I think analogy and subtext and things like that is how we take these really difficult concepts like gender identity and sexual identity and that sort of umbrella of topics and break it down into a way that is really accessible for people that isn't their world. And actually, I think that's why it's so important to have a system like Rainbow Assured to actually come in and make it accessible. I think that
Yeah.
accessibility is a really key word, and using those stories and those analogies and things like that to say, you know, let's take away all of the complex jargon and things like that. And, you know, as to use another analogy, an analogy for an analogy, when I used to work in IT and I used to work in IT retail and I'd be selling computers, I would use a car analogy because people are more au fait with buying cars than they are with buying computers. And I would say this computer is your Mini Cooper, right? And this is it gets you around town, it'll do the school run, but don't expect to take it off-roading. This one is your Land Rover, you know, really rugged, built for industry, built for you know, big, heavy tasks.
But don't be able to expect to park it in a multi-story.
Exactly. And then this one is your big, flashy, big sports car that you know, is going to be really, really super fast and things like that. And it's that reframing. It's creating pictures in people's heads to evoke the same emotion and the same understanding, and go, right, all of that understanding you now have, apply that to this slightly different situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think is really important when we're trying to get people on board and we're trying to explain to particularly, you know, elderly people.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, I was approached by an age-related charity who was worried that their volunteers just wouldn't understand it or want to understand it. And I do think that the training that we offer and the way that we offer the training is really super accessible and super understandable for people. One of the things that's in my training is the experiment blue eyes, brown eyes.
Okay.
You seen that?
I don't potentially, but remind me for the sake of the listeners. Remind me.
Love it. Lady called Jane. I've forgotten her surname, but she's awesome. If I ever get a chance to meet her, brilliant. Love to. She did an experiment in her a young preschool class. She's American, and it was just after Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, and she felt that that her class really had no concept of racism. And so she went in and said, right, we're going to do an experiment. We're going to, she said it was an American like Brotherhood Day or something. She said, you know, what do you understand by American Brotherhood? And they said to treat other people like they're your brother. And she said, right, she said, do you think you understand what it would be like to not be treated as someone's brother? And they sort of said, no. I think they were 7-year-olds. And she said, right, well, today we're going to do an experiment. She said, well, everyone who's got blue eyes, raise your hands, right? And everyone who's got brown eyes, raise your hands. I guess that was in the day. There weren't that many green eyes. But either way, they counted as just blue eyes or kind of any other colour eyes. And so she put like collars on the brown eyes so they could be easily identifiable. And she said, I think, because I'm blue-eyed, I think we should go first today because blue-eyed people are better. Blue-eyed people are cleverer. Blue-eyed people are smarter. Blue-eyed people are kinder. Blue-eyed people are trustworthy. And then she'd kind of picked on this kid and said, well, where are your glasses? And he said, I forgot them. And she said, well, that's not very good. Brown-eyed people are forgetful. She said, you know, blue-eyed people didn't forget their glasses. So-and-so didn't forget her glasses. And just by like the power of suggestion, this little analogy, this entirely white 7-year-old class became very spiteful towards the other child. And she said she watched in minutes how her class of kind, wonderful, warm children became nasty and spiteful and horrible towards each other. And they'd come back from recess and they'd been fighting. And she said, you know, what happened? She said, he called me names. He called me brown eyes. And so then she sort of created this animosity. And then the next day she said, actually, yesterday I was wrong. It's the brown-eyed people that are better. Blue-eyed people don't do this. And then she sort of started picking out different traits. And then they did it the other way. You know, and then the next day she came back and said, it didn't feel very nice, did it, you know, to be treated poorly just because of the colour of your eyes. And she said, this is what racism is like, because she said, you're very lucky. Well, you will never experience racism on the kind of scale that black people do, people of colour. And it was really, really interesting. She said, you turned against each other. And she said, and there was no need, because the only thing that's different is the colour of your eyes, and it literally makes no difference whatsoever. She said before yesterday, it made no difference, and after yesterday, it's going to make no difference. And it was a really clear way to, and she did that again, called an angry eye later on with college students, and they found it so upsetting. They were so angry about being treated badly. And she just said, you're using, this girl kind of walked out of the class and she said, you're using a privilege that people of colour don't have. They don't get to walk out. Yeah. They have to get it all the time. And so I've put that in my training because it's a really easy way to understand the point that the LGBTQ community are not so different. The point is they're still human. And, if you didn't know that they were different to you or they fancied someone different to you, why, would you treat them differently in any other respect?
100%. And I think one of the things that I take away from that story as well is the idea and the notion that we aren't born racist, we aren't born homophobic, we aren't born transphobic, we're taught, we learn. And it doesn't take a lot to instill a belief system. Mm-hmm. If you can repeat it enough, if you can say a belief with enough repetition, it doesn't matter whether you have fact behind it or not.
Yeah,
it will become a solid belief.
Yeah,
and I think that's why combating these beliefs at grassroots in schools is so important. But also B, it's why we have to be conscious at tackling the language that we use in the workplace and around our children. Yeah. Because we will be unconsciously continuing this notion that the LGBT community is an other, is less than, is XYZ.
So I was just looking up the lady's name that did the experiment. It's Jane Elliot. So I just wanted to make sure I give her name. What you were saying, there was no, that's a fibrofog, perimenopause. It's gone. I don't know what you were saying. So let's go back to you.
Yeah, I was just saying that it perpetuates this idea that this language, these attitudes, they are passed down, they are taught to younger generations, and unfortunately, digital media and social media perpetuates that. People like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate perpetuate these ideas. You have young boys that are feeling isolated and feeling estranged, and find someone that empathizes with them and radicalizes them in the same way that young angry young boys may be radicalized by a religion, is that they're being radicalized by weaponized misogyny. And that's on a very grand scale. That's on a very very scary scale, very sort of big scale, but on a smaller scale, but yet on a wider scale, a more chronic scale, is that we have this perpetuation of these beliefs just through ignorance.
Yeah.
And not ignorance of people not ignorance as in people are ignorant that queer people can do the same things. I don't think the vast majority of people think that somebody is incapable of doing a job because they're queer. For example, I think it's an ignorance around the impact of their language and behaviour.
And can I be clear in saying that I'm very much of the opinion that, that the right person should get the job, not just, it's not a tick box exercise. It's not, well, I should give this person a job because they're gay and they identify as trans. The idea is that you can attract a much wider, diverse talent to your workplace setting because of your inclusive policies, and therefore you will have a larger group of talent to choose from for the correct jobs.
Exactly.
I don't want people to say, you only think they should get the job because they're gay or because they're a woman. That's not the point. What I want is for people to be attracted into the workplace, and therefore for workplaces to have a much better range of employees to choose from, or recruitments to choose from, in order to fill their posts, so that the best person can do the best job for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think before I expand on that, I want to give a prelogue, just sort of like a preface. I think the word ignorance can be my belief is that sometimes the word ignorance is overused or kind of made to be a lot harsher than it is. I think some people generally are ignorant, and it's quite a weaponized barb of a word. Oh, you're ignorant.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it would be beneficial for the conversation to find a slightly softer word than ignorant.
Yeah.
For those that aren't selectively ignorant, are just uninformed.
Yes, they just don't know.
Yeah, it's just never been they've never crossed it.
Yeah.
So yes, you could say I am ignorant to the principles and philosophies behind architecture, right? Because
Yes.
I've never come across that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in a more sort of social, societal context, when we use the word ignorant around things like gender identity and sexuality and race, it then becomes quite, you're not doing a good enough job. You're ignorant. You're not working hard enough.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think sometimes we say you're misinformed. You're sort of misguided in this. So that's the preface, and then how I'm going to apply that to what you were saying is I think. A lot of people like myself who are cis-sexual, heterosexual, the vast majority of us are misinformed and misguided and sort of unconsciously incompetent in the lives and processes and struggles of the queer community, right?
Yeah.
When I'm applying for a job, I don't think about whether I'm going to be included or feel inclusive in that workplace. I just assume that I am.
Yeah.
And that is an incredible privilege.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think once you can change that mindset in employers to say, not everyone feels like they can waltz into a new work environment, be uniquely and unapologetically who they are, and feel like they're going to be comfortable and accepted and free.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to get that across, because that then, once you get that, that's the first domino that falls to then say, and this is why we have to do this wider education around language and attitude and behaviour, because not everyone feels
that is
secure.
absolutely massive. When I was back in the world of normal employment, it's quite a while ago, I have said frequently since then, I don't think I'm employable anymore. And most of the reason, apart from that I just like to go out for lunch all the time, is and have longer lunch breaks than a normal employment would allow me, is that I now have multicoloured hair, is that I'm now very much more my own person, is I'm quite outspoken with my views, and I get quite irate is probably the wrong word, but I get quite defensive of people who are being victimised, and I can't keep quiet about that. If I see unfairness in the street, or one day I'm probably going to get stabbed, because I want to stand up for people. And I think in a normal work environment, that's quite hard, because then you're going to come up against people who obviously are doing the victimising in the first place. They're not going to, take too kindly to being stood up to by a sort of pleb of an employee like me. And then you've got managers who then have to do something about it. If you take it to them and go, oh, well, this is a problem, they'll go, right, okay, here we go. And I kind of see myself as someone who might be a problem in a workplace. And it's not great to feel like that, but I also do feel like it would be for a good reason, because I don't like kind of social injustice. I wouldn't want to be seen as a problem, obviously, going into other people's workplaces, which why I work for myself. And actually, I think that the change that I can make is really tangible and is really, useful to employers to have someone who comes in and goes, actually, no, this is not okay. We need to do this better. But I can help you do that better. I'm not just going to say you need to do it better and then leave. I want to be someone who stands out for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I do think that probably a normal working environment isn't the right place for me anymore. But, I guess you've sort of decided that for yourself as well. You work for yourself. Do you want to just say what you... We know that you're producer Cal.
Yeah.
But do you want to just say what you actually do?
Yeah, so I run a video production agency with my long-suffering business partner, Rob, who is behind that camera currently.
We have producer Rob today.
Live editing this production. And we mix creative consultancy and production. So we come into companies or charities and help them figure out their communication challenges. So what are they trying to say and how successful are they being at saying that? And that may be outward facing, that may be traditional marketing and advertising. But very similarly to what you're looking at is it could be internally facing. So it could be internal communications. So actually there's a little bit of an overlap there is are they trying to say that they are a socially conscious and inclusive employer? And how effective are they saying that? And then we use video tools like podcasts and brand videos and TV advertising and social advertising and on all sorts of different video technology to communicate more effectively, essentially.
I mean, and obviously I'm wanting to use you when I get to the point where I can turn my training course into a video for easier ways of kind of spreading around bigger companies and corporations. Then obviously you're going to be heading that as well. We also have the mirror to work on.
We do, yes. So you've wrote this fantastically beautiful poem about gender identity that we are hoping to sort of turn into a short film.
Yes.
Although I think we've both sort of realised that making a short film alongside starting a business is normally
fairly
you do one or
difficult.
the other. You normally start a business or make a short film. You don't tend to do the same at the same time.
Yes. So I have, I'm wanting to make a short film. I'm starting a new business, starting a podcast. I tried to move house. That didn't really work. I've unfortunately had a separation with my wife. But I'm doing all of these things at once.
Exactly.
Because I like a challenge. I like to
life, it was too
explode.
easy. You were like, life's too easy. I need to,
Spontaneous combustion should be a
fuck
thing.
shit up. You know, I need it. Where's
Exactly
the
what
chaos?
needs to happen.
Just as it reminds me of do you know sometimes you get these posts come up on TikTok and they're these really sort of spiritual observations, and it's like people who grow up in chaos don't like stability in adulthood, so they create chaos. And
I'm not intending to.
exactly, and I'm like, what a load of wank. But it just reminded me of, it's like, oh yeah, no, I miss my chaos. I'd love some stability.
Yeah, that would be nice. What's that like?
Exactly. But
also on that point of view, TikToks that come up with all these, wonderful phrases and sayings. My friend Bella and I have a habit, because when the separation happened, she said, right, come round, let's have a cup of tea and just kind of talk things out, see how you are. And we came up with the idea of inventing a doll where you could kind of pull back the string and release. And every time you pull back the string and release, you'd get a different cliche come out. And then you could just give this doll to someone who was struggling a little bit. And then they could have good things said to them without you actually needing to be there all the time. So it'd be things like, if you reach for the stars, at least you'll land in the... Or if you reach for the moon, you'll land with the stars.
I tell you what, if you did create that product, I think the NHS would save a lot of money in mental health practitioners.
Yeah.
Because I've gone on my own mental health journey and sat with mental health practitioners in GP surgeries. And have you thought of going for a walk?
Yes. Mental health provision in England is struggling slightly at the moment, I think it's fair to say. Yes, I've had the same. Have you thought about losing weight? Oh, is that going to make me happier that I can't have chocolate?
The one thing that actually brings me happiness each day. Yeah, I'm going to cut that out. That sounds like a great idea. Have you tried taking a break?
Have you tried reading a book? I can't read a book. My brain is too busy.
Yeah.
Have you tried meditating? That doesn't work.
No.
The ADHD brain is not really fit for meditating.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So how have you found so how have you found starting a business and taking the Venn diagram of the challenges with neurodiversity, but then also the vulnerability of starting a business that is very kind of intrinsically linked to your identity? How have you found that challenge? Because I think most people, when they start a business, they think, oh, you know, I like bikes, I'm going to open a bike shop.
Yes.
Or, you know,
I like cleaning windows, I'm going to open a window cleaners.
Or I'm a trained plumber, you know, I'll become a plumber. Whereas with your business, you're inherently putting your heart on your sleeve and having to be quite vulnerable. So to almost turn the podcast around to you, how has that process been?
Hard. I have felt... I mean, I certainly am someone who suffers with imposter syndrome anyway, and not feeling good enough and not feeling like my contribution is valuable enough. The book that you lent me was incredibly helpful.
That was Digital Millionaire Secrets by Dan Henry.
Yes, that was really helpful because one of the things it pointed out was that you don't have to be like some kind of genius in your subject to know more than most people. You just have to know more than most people.
Yeah.
And then that knowledge is valuable to other people. And that really helped me to think about things and think, actually, I do know more about the LGBTQ at work community than a lot of people. And I've studied it and I've researched.
You've lived it.
And I've lived it, yeah. Ultimately, I have lived it. And I guess I definitely think that because I married a woman, I felt more qualified, I guess, to speak about this kind of subject. I do feel that if I end up in another heterosexual relationship, that I may be viewed as not as qualified.
Interesting.
Yeah, even though I've been married to a woman and I've had a life with her for my hair's green, blue, purple. Yes, I am just the blue one to everyone. I don't really know why that is. I think because I came into the LGBTQ community fairly late in my life, so I was 37 when I came out, I think, 30, 36, 37. It's around the same kind of time I started perimenopause, actually. I wonder if there's a link. But it was... I literally... There was somebody that I liked and had liked for a while, and it wasn't going away, and they were one of my dog grooming clients, not the actual dog grooming, just point that out.
Okay.
It's not the dog. And I liked them, and it just wasn't going anywhere. And I thought, I don't know, maybe this is a thing for me. It was a gay woman. So I just rang my mum and said, I think I should tell you something. And she said, oh, okay, what is it? And I thought, I can't do it. I can't tell her. I don't know what to say. I can't say anything. And then I thought, I've got to say something because she's going to think I'm pregnant or going to prison or something. So I said, I think I'm bisexual. And she said, oh, are you? I said, yeah. She's like, where did that come from? I said, well, there's this lady that I like, and I've liked her for a while, and it's, for like 4 years, and it's not going anywhere. And I sort of thought, I should tell you in case it's a thing. I said, I may never end up dating a woman, but, in case I do, I kind of wanted you to know first. And she said, oh, okay. And the one thing I remember from that conversation is that her voice got gradually higher and higher with every comment she made. And then by the time we stopped talking, she just went, I'll tell your dad, shall I? In this kind of squeaky Minnie Mouse voice. And I was like, oh, yes, please, thank you, goodbye. And nothing ever happened with that when we're still friends. But I certainly didn't feel at the time that I would have been able to start any kind of pride-related business because I didn't feel I had the background or the knowledge or the experience within the discrimination kind of arena. That's a bit sad. It's very sad, feeling like I should have been discriminated against in order to represent these people. I've actually experienced, I guess, quite in terms of being queer, I've actually experienced very little discrimination. I've experienced plenty of discrimination for other reasons, but that's a little bit sad that I feel like I have to have experienced trauma and discrimination in order to represent. I mean, there's plenty of people that represent other groups that perhaps haven't been through anything inherently kind of evil in order to represent or do something kind. But mine, I do, because my business is particularly purpose-led. It's a purpose-led business. I want to make a difference. I want to do better. I want to increase inclusivity. I want to help mental health by ending discrimination within the workplace. And then I would like that to kind of then peter out to these people I'm educating. I would like it then to kind of ripple out to their families, so that gradually other people get treated better as well. That's quite surprised me. I didn't know I felt like that.
That's really interesting. I feel like this has been something of a therapy session as well.
I think...
yeah, which our conversations normally are, aren't they?
Yes, they actually are.
But I think that to put my producer head back on, we're going to have to wrap it up shortly.
God,
we're already at half an hour.
Oh, blimey.
But
I saw you keep looking at Rob, and I thought,
yeah, Rob's been giving me some different hand signals over there to let me know that we're running out of time.
What's going on.
So I think just the thing that I'd reflect back to you there is if you think about say a personal trainer, you know, not every personal trainer has maybe
been bullied for their size,
or you know, been not let on a ride at a theme park for their size or something like that. That doesn't mean that they're not qualified to teach you positive fitness and nutrition.
Yeah.
Or a doctor may not have had meningitis, but they can still prescribe and diagnose and advise on meningitis.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's very very true.
And the other thing is that and it's something that Rob and I talk about a lot, because we get a lot of imposter syndrome in our industry as well. It's a very competitive, congested industry. We both come from a filmmaking background, but we come from a very mainstream filmmaking background, so I couldn't name you any French New Wave films or any...
To be fair, if you did, I wouldn't know them anyway.
You know, so when we were at university, there was a lot of students that knew all of these sort of performance artists and French filmmakers and things like that. So you're like, oh, I just like Marvel films. And does that mean that I'm not enough of a filmmaker?
Right.
And then now we're in this sort of business space and this marketing space. It's like, well, I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have a business degree. I have a Bachelor of the Arts, which if you ask any right-leaning person is a pointless degree. You know, I have a liberal arts degree. I'm the scum of the earth. You know, I'm a dirty liberal arts lefty.
I don't have a degree. I'm not sure what that makes me.
You know, but what I say to Rob all the time is just to remember to come back to the idea of knowing 20% more than the person you're teaching, is that the things that we live by, the processes we follow, the facts that we follow, that are the everyday basic knowledge for us, could blow somebody's mind and transform their lives. The idea, and the biggest one we see is through social media marketing, and the idea that your social media presence shouldn't just be continuous billboards of advertising. It should be an entertaining and value-filled experience for the viewer.
Like my blooper reel.
Exactly, like your blooper reel you posted the other day. Now that is just common sense for us. But the amount of times I say that to businesses, that, you know, maybe think about how much your social media is asking for money, and how much of it is actually stuff that people would want to see on Instagram or Facebook, and they're like, oh my God. So just remember that something that is common sense for you could be hugely enlightening for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And to turn it back into a joke, it reminds me of my A-level computing teacher who didn't know anything about computing and was just reading the chapter ahead in the textbook. So I would read 2 chapters ahead and then ask her questions that she'd not read yet, because I was a bastard.
Oh, you're such a Sagittarian. I do love you. Right. Good. Thank you, Cal, for coming
It's been
in
a pleasure.
and
Thank you for
hopping
having me.
into my emergency seat. You may have to do it again sometime, but
It
as
will
you can
always
see,
be a pleasure.
we clearly fill a time slot fairly easily.
Exactly.
So thank you, Cal, for coming into Queerly Biz. That's episode 7 done from Kerry King at Rainbow Assured.